I'm from a small village called Yumuoka. It's a quiet place, surrounded by lush farmlands as far as the eye can see. Life there is simple, dictated by the rhythm of the seasons and the generosity of the soil. Everything we have, everything we are, comes from the earth. It's how we eat, how we live, how we survive. But I've learned that the same land that gives life can also take it away. It can destroy people. I saw it happen with my own eyes. When I was just a boy, my father's two younger brothers, Ifeanyi and Emeka, were the pride of Yumuoka. They were the best farmers in the village, their hands seemingly blessed by the spirits of the harvest. I remember them being close once. They worked side by side, their laughter echoing across the fields as they shared tools, stories, and the sweat of their labor. Everything changed after their father, my grandfather, passed away. He left them a large, fertile piece of land near the river, a legacy meant to sustain them both. The village elders, in their wisdom, divided the land equally, or so they thought, half for Ifeanyi, half for Emeka. But fate, or perhaps the land itself, had other plans. Ifeanyi's portion was different. The soil there was dark, rich, and loamy. Anything he planted seemed to erupt from the ground with vigor, growing twice as fast and twice as large as anyone else's crops. Emeka's side, however, was a struggle. His soil was dry, sandy, and littered with stubborn stones that resisted the blade of his hoe. At first, Emeka's discontent was just a low grumble, whispers of complaint to his wife and friends. But as each planting season passed, his jealousy festered like an untreated wound. He began to accuse Ifeanyi of cheating him, claiming the elders had secretly favored his brother during the division. The bond they once shared started to fray, replaced by suspicion and resentment. It got worse with every bountiful harvest Ifeanyi celebrated, while Emeka's yams remained small and his corn stalks thin. The tension finally snapped one afternoon. Emeka, driven by his growing bitterness, moved the boundary stick that separated their lands, trying to claim a small strip of Ifeanyi's fertile soil for himself. Ifeanyi, of course, noticed immediately. He marched over and moved it back. The argument that followed was so loud, so filled with rage, that the entire village gathered to watch. My own father rushed to intervene, trying to remind them of their brotherhood, but they were beyond reason. They brandished their machetes, their faces twisted with a hatred I had never seen before. The elders stepped in, their voices heavy with ancient authority. One of them, the oldest man in the village, warned them in a solemn tone, "Land is not worth blood. Stop this foolishness. If you spill your brother's blood on your father's soil, the ground will not forget." For a moment it seemed they might listen, but the anger in their eyes was too deep. They didn't listen. They never listened. A few months later, the harvest season was upon us. The yams were ready and the village was busy. I was sent to take a late meal to Ifeanyi at the farm. He had stayed behind after everyone else had gone home, wanting to uproot the last of his massive yams before the evening rains began. It was almost dusk. The sky was a brilliant, bloody red, and I can still remember the thick, heavy smell of wet earth hanging in the air. As I got closer to the farm, I heard voices, angry voices, cutting. Through the quiet evening, I instinctively hid behind a large palm tree, my heart pounding in my chest. It was Emeka. He was shouting, his voice strained with fury. "You stole what belongs to me. This was my inheritance." Ifeanyi's reply was just as loud, just as angry. "This land was my father's gift. You are the thief here, not me." And then I heard it, a sound I will never forget, a hard, dull thud. It was the sound of heavy iron meeting flesh. Then another thud. And then an unnerving, absolute silence. The only sound was the chirping of crickets and the rustle of leaves in the wind. I stood frozen behind the tree, shaking, too terrified to move. I waited for what felt like an eternity. When the last light of day had faded and darkness blanketed the farm, I finally found the courage to step out. I walked slowly, cautiously towards Ifeanyi's plot, and there he was. He was lying on the ground, his farming hoe cast aside beside him. A dark pool of blood was soaking into the rich dirt he had cherished so much. Emeka was gone. I didn't even scream. I just turned and ran. I ran all the way home, tears streaming down my face. The image of my uncle's still body burned into my mind. My father gathered some men, and they went back with lanterns that night, but the body was already cold. The very next morning, the village elders called an emergency meeting. They questioned Demika, their eyes boring into him. He denied everything, of course. He swore he hadn't seen his brother. He claimed Ifeanyi must have slipped in the mud and hit his head on a rock. His story was weak, but there were no other witnesses. No one but me, a child too scared to speak. But everyone knew, in a small village like Yumioka, the truth has a way of making itself known. So they took him to the earth shrine at the edge of the village, the most sacred place we have. It's where oaths are sworn and justice is delivered, not by men, but by the land itself. Emika was made to stand before the ancient clay pot, which was filled with soil from that very shrine. He placed his hand upon it and spoke the words, his voice trembling slightly. If I killed my brother, Ifeanyi, let the ground I stand on swallow me whole. 3 days passed. Life in the village seemed to return to a semblance of normal. Then it happened. Emeka went to his farm early in the morning, the same farm he had fought so desperately for. Around noon, a piercing scream echoed from the fields. It was a sound of pure terror. People dropped their tools and ran towards the sound. When they got there, they found him. They found Emeka's body, half buried in the ground from the waist down, as if the earth itself had opened its mouth and was slowly consuming him. His mouth was packed full of dirt, and his eyes were wide open in a permanent state of shock and horror. The villagers said the land had taken him. The earth had not forgotten. After that day, no one ever farmed that piece of land again. It lies fallow, a cursed reminder of what happened. Even now, 20 years later, nothing grows there, while the fields all around it are green and full of life. That one patch remains just bare, red soil. It's as if the ground is salted with grief and rage. Sometimes when the wind is low and I walk past it at dusk, I swear I can hear a sound, the faint, rhythmic sound of a hoe hitting the ground, slow and steady. My father says that's Sifianyi, still tending to his farm in the spirit world, but the old women in the village, they say it's something else. They say it's the land, whispering its eternal story, reminding us all that it never ever forgets. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this journey into the shadows, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more tales from the dark. It helps us continue to bring these stories to you. Stay safe and always respect the ground you walk on.